Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Neid, and today I'm joined by a new friend, Coach Tex Mcquilkin. Chris and I met, well, would you prefer Tex or Chris?
Tex, we're talking business.
We're talking business. Okay, perfect. So Tex and I met in person. Did you go to the December mastermind as well?
Not the December, the previous August.
Right. So we met in April, and I heard him speak on a topic I personally feel very strongly about in the coaching space, which is emotional intelligence. And I wanted to have him on the podcast to really do a deep dive on that. Typically, we go into people's stories a little bit. So Tex, maybe Cole's notes. How'd you get to where you are today?
It's been an adventure. Travel the world, 6 continents, seminars all over the world on behalf of coaching. But naturally, my coaching career began as an athlete. So I was a collegiate lacrosse player at Marymount University, Division III. So shout out D3 All-Stars. And that's an East Coast school, but I started to pick up the sport in Texas, which, believe it or not, that's like an oxymoron.
Oh, yeah.
At least 20 years ago, lacrosse in Texas. So I was able to break the mold a little bit and go have an impact with my team. And so I was from small town Texas where football is life. Well, I played football until my coaches told me, like, I wasn't any good. Like, I work hard in the weight room. I was told this. I was work hard in the weight room. I work hard in the field, but you're just not any good. So defeated as that. And my coaches also made the decision. They took my teammates' performance into their own hands and decided, as juniors, my class, they're going to put us on JV. They're going to take our sophomore class and put them in varsity so that we can compete against our cross-town state champion rival. And the coaches were selling hope to the boosters and the parents in that they could keep their jobs for 3 more years. So my buddies and I, we believed, like, we were built different. So we believed we were leaders, we were winners. And so we didn't take it lightly. And we took our performance into our own hands and we started a lacrosse team. So 5 of the 10 of us went on to go play college ball, some club. I played NCAA, and I took the football mentality to lacrosse on the East Coast because I didn't know otherwise, right? You lift weights, you run fast, you train hard, you play your sport. And I mean, Texas lacrosse, our skills are low, but you make up with it with a certain physicality. It's not a pretty game to watch at the high school level, especially 20 years ago. And so I didn't know any better. So I would just use my head as a weapon, sacrifice my body, and really put people on their ass. I got more career knockouts than I do goals, like literally knock dudes unconscious. So
I love it.
That's just what I did. And so I broke my leg 8 days before the first game of my freshman year. Just naturally running into a dude in practice, stepping on him, rolling my ankle and breaking my fibula, which was a blessing in disguise, right? We're freaking sad as all hell and angry at the same time. And, mix of emotions. You can't run, you can't lift weights. Like, I did a shit ton of bench press, but it sucked. However, it gave me an opportunity to actually learn the game. So the schemes, the X's and the O's, where I would just go 100 miles an hour through somebody and make plenty of mistakes. So now I was actually forced to watch practice, take stats in games, and watch film, break down film for coach, and learn how to play, which was great. So then every other year that I played, I just worked hard and understood it. I knew the schemes and made captain. So went from just a injured player to team captain within that year, just through the intangibles. Like, if you look at the stat sheets, you're not going to find me, but started every game and then had an impact through all the little things within the team. So through that leadership is how I earned my first coaching opportunity, where grad school, like, not in my vision. However, coach created that reality when he offered me a coaching position in exchange for like I get school in exchange for coaching the team.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I ran into imposter syndrome. And again, that self-doubt and fear and anger and just sadness I mentioned my freshman year from being injured. Like now I'm coaching, I have responsibility, and I got to go recruit dudes. So I have to recruit kids that have been playing the sport their entire lives. And I'd never developed like the instinct, this sense and flow, and I just didn't understand offense at the time. And so I had a rule, or my team had a rule, don't pass me the ball. So that should tell you everything you need to know. So now I got to recruit kids and like sell my school to the parents, and like certainly lost. So then I thought, all right, how do I have an impact? Well, I know how to lift weights. I know how to run fast and play your sport. So I started to just talk about athleticism and speed and the physicality when I'm recruiting these dudes, and started to attract athletes versus just lacrosse players. And I had a welcome to college coaching moment where I'm on the sideline of a summer league game in Virginia, and I'm just like taking notes on some dude, and a coach who's standing next to me like takes notice, and he's like, "Oh, you know that kid? Oh, yeah, he's awesome. He's doing all these things." And the coach is like pointing out certain things. Well, that was the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame at the time, who's now the head coach at Harvard University. And so he set me straight. He's like, "Where are you at school? Or what school are you with?" I was like, "Oh, Marymount University, Division III, Virginia." And he's like, "Well, that's our guy. And so here's the level of person that you want to look for so you can attract him to your school." So where like I'm looking for awesome, he's like, "You don't need to look for awesome. You need to look for potential." So coach was just being nice at the time, and I didn't know who he was. He actually has roots in Texas, through Dallas. So it gets to a small, crazy world once you get to the fringes. So he set me straight, and I just had to think about how do I have an impact with the team. So I just took on the role of strength and conditioning coach. My university, we had a fitness center, not a weight room. And so there was no scheduled times. There was no, like at Georgetown, right, where they have the blocked off center. Now they get their whole own facility. And so I had to find a way to make an impact with the team. So I used training, but I didn't have a training facility. So I had to think outside the box a lot. And my first session training the team, and these were my friends, they were my former teammates, but now they were my athletes. First session, going for upper body strength, and we don't have a weight room. So I asked our dudes to just kick up against a wall against our back field, like this giant wall that we have. And one of them, he falls down, he goes down. So I see this kid fall, and with my football coach mentality, right? The only way I know how to coach is like to yell and like do what I had coached on me. So I run up to this kid and start to MF him. And then he's like, his arm is just like dangling there. And he's like, "Coach, I can't move my arm." So it turned out he tore his labrum. So my first training session with the team in September of 2009, I tore this senior's labrum, and I took away like his final year of his season, final year of his career. Like nobody's going pro from our school. So that was a moment that hit hard, and realized like I need mentorship. I need guidance here. I can't just will my way through this like I did my athletic career. So I got on the interwebs. I found mentors, and then again in grad school, actually working as a personal trainer, salesman. Like this is actually where I met Justin Kavanaugh. Just some BS position where I'm like selling personal training packages.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how you met Cav?
In
Okay.
2009. So I've known him for a while, and I had no idea his coaching techniques. This is where I just knew his salesmanship. If I had known about his coaching mystique, like I wouldn't have flown halfway across the country. So I sold enough packages. They gave me $1,000 check, and then I flew across the country to California to spend 2 days with a man named John Wellborn and Rafael Ruiz.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 days from those dudes, just cracking the bone and sucking the marrow out of everything that those dudes, as a professional coach and former professional athlete, had to offer. And then I went home and I applied it to Division III athletes, which I'm grateful for, because for 3 years I was working with dudes that were not athletic and not strong enough to hurt themselves when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So, like, teaching them to deadlift so poorly, like, I can remember how I was coaching and directing it. Like, this is so bad. If I had video of that, I'd probably be out of a coaching job. This would be like those mean tweets that people have from their past. If they saw how poorly I was coaching deadlifts, they'd be like, "No, you're fired," like, preemptively. So I was very fortunate that the dudes were not athletic. And I mean, we didn't win a lot of games. We had a great time. I mean, that's what I loved about Division III sports, is just like the lifelong bonds and friendships I got from those teams. We had some upsets. We were in the conference. Whoever won our conference won the national championship. So I got to see and play against the best during my time in my career, which was fun. And so I actually learned how to coach, and I valued the warm up. I valued just making those mistakes, and like seeing and having the humility to realize what I did had impact, positively and negatively. Like, I created the most intense, dynamic warm up. I was so super proud, and I remember the first practice applying it, and dudes were just sweating and dying after, right, the 10-15 minute warm up. Well, they just weren't in shape. And so eventually they do the same thing over and over, and eventually it stopped having the pop, the power, the impact. And so when it came to season, we were down 3-0 to start the game because the guys were not firing on all cylinders, as an example. So, like, learning the law of accommodation, sure, I can read it and pass your test, but the shit, it's real. So learning principles that first 3 years, and then valuable communication, that was a meaningful impact. And as mentioned when we were during my talk with Coach Cav's last mastermind, like, I took a lot of my friendships and connections with these dudes for granted, because I had established an authority, I established trust, I established bonds over years of connecting with those guys. And by the time we got new freshmen in, like, the seniors were like, "You better listen to this dude. He knows what he's doing. He's etc." So uh, then I jumped from Marymount University to Georgetown University to focus solely on strength training, where I love sport and the physical training, coaching side of things, and that's where I am now, back with high school doing that. I love making the connection between the weight room and the field. But at Georgetown, just focused on the weight room, but now was handed a lot of different teams, crew, women's lacrosse, which I had minimal exposure to.
Tough sport.
Yeah, so all these different things, and there were many more lessons to learn, especially that connection to the athlete. I assumed, going from D3 to D1, that all of them, A, worked hard, and B, wanted to be there. That assumption was blown out of the water the first day.
I'm laughing because it's totally not the case at all.
No, no. So I as just a hardworking, naive performance individual, I would die to be on that team when I was in college. Nope. They are so talented and skilled that the last thing on their mind is picking up that dumbbell. Like, to quote Kenny Powers, that shit's heavy. Why would I want to pick that up? I can throw the ball faster than. So, like, that was a lot of the mentality. And all the meatheads on the team were just the walk-ons. So I connected and related with them real quick, but then trying to see and gain the awareness of just a full weight room of skilled individuals that were on either scholarship, partial scholarship, dudes from Canada that were allergic to weights. I'm
Easy, easy, easy.
jabs here, and then just the meatheads that would do anything, that were willing to die, but then when it came to game time, they're with me on the sideline. So awesome exposure and more learning opportunities there. I mean, I'm going to take a breath, but like that's the foundation is a Division III athlete. I'm an oxymoron. I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to have success. And I found a way to, just through hard work, the weight room, and probably being too hard headed to understand and listen to what I was supposed to do, basically.
There's a lot to tease out of that, and a lot of it mimics my own story. I mean, like, I moved to South Florida when I graduated undergrad. I was like, I want to be a strength coach. I moved to USF and started working with the football team. And I was just like you, man. I walked on to play basketball in college when I realized that I wasn't going to play basketball. Because for those who don't know, I'm 5'9" and white. Um, I I played football. I hadn't played football my whole life, so this skill level was lacking. But I was just a good athlete. Had knee surgery, moved to, like, that kind of sparked my interest in performance training, which is why I wanted to be a strength coach. And when I got to Florida, I was like, these guys are going to be freaks. They're all going to want to work hard. And to be fair, there were guys who went on to win Super Bowls that, one, could barely read, and two, had no interest whatsoever in weight training. But their God-given ability is to the level where they don't necessarily need it. Like, why would I do this if I've gotten as far as I have without it? And it was really challenging for me because that really challenged me to the core, challenged my beliefs. But I was able to learn how to communicate, to learn how to appeal to this different individual in a way where I was never able to do that before. And I think it's something that we take for granted as strength and conditioning coaches. Your program could be the best thing in the world, but unless you're able to communicate with that individual, appeal to their emotions, motivate them to perform it to the highest level, it doesn't matter if your program's written on a napkin. If they work hard, it'll work.
Yeah, and that's when I started taking mental notes with Georgetown, because you also have to connect with the sport coach.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what they say, it goes. No ifs, ands, or buts. And this is a lesson I learned from Mike Hill. If it's your team to lose. And so Mike was in charge of the women's lacrosse team at Georgetown. And so when he would travel with basketball during the winter, I had the privilege of running those sessions with the team. And their head coach, he was the USA women's head coach. So this man knows everything there is about women's lacrosse. He's a great recruiter. He's a great coach. And so when it came down to the conditioning team and the running the conditioning test, like, okay, I'm handed the sheet from Coach Hill, and all right, I got my opinions about this. So then I go and run the play. I see it in action, and I'm like, man, this is stupid. And so, no poker face. Like, I expressed that. And when I had the opportunity to then go run the play again, I made the adjustments. I put in my personality, my panache to the style of performance and training. And then, like, they were new to the movements. So then they were sore. I didn't communicate like what that meant. What I should have said is, well, you're sore. That means you worked hard, and etc. And helped frame it. Well, then I chose to talk negatively about the other stuff they were doing and why what I gave them is beneficial. And then next thing you know, Coach Freed is making his way down to that old, blocked off part of the student center that Georgetown called their athletic weight room. Um, I'm making jabs at it. That place was awesome.
It was
But the
badass. Yeah.
compared to the new facility, holy smokes. So yeah, Coach Freed makes his way down and asks to have a word with me, and then speaks to Coach Hill, and where they enjoyed what I was doing. They loved me, right? He's trying to kill me with kindness, but then I lost the responsibility. So now, like, okay, I failed to relate to the athletes. I failed to connect. So now I started making Georgetown was impossible to lose because that was the current head coach's first year, and he set out a goal where he wanted 50% of the team to quit because he was going to change the culture there. And so he wanted us to just basically murder these dudes, and it was successful. So yeah, they were down to a small roster, and so taking that mentality to the women's program is not going to work. So now I'm thinking, okay, I have to relate to this high caliber, high performance team where the coach has expectations that I can really relate and get behind and connect with, but the players aren't there yet. There's some dudes, but not everyone's there yet. So now I have to find a way to relate to these guys to then help bring and say, when they choose to state their opinions about what coach is doing, because strength coach is trusted. Like, we spend more time with the athletes than anybody.
Yeah.
And so now they're venting, they're sharing their feelings, they're expressing this, where I got to be able to empathize. I got to listen and then help frame the bigger picture. Dude, I'm wiser. My career is finished. Let me show you, as a former collegiate athlete, why there's value to what you're doing right now. And then, like, framing it in the terms of competition. You want to find out who your other teammates are when the going gets tough. And that way you can learn to lean into each other. So helping create awareness through these guys. So it's relating to the team, and then as an assistant coach, you get the opportunity to lead individuals. I get to have certain conversations as an assistant strength coach that the head strength coach, he doesn't have to have. He doesn't get to have. So what's the privilege there of me leading individuals? Then there's certain times, as I shared, where, say, Mike Hill steps away, or the head coach was Coach Foster for strength coach. He steps away. And now I need to step into the lead role as an assistant. And now I need to work on my, in terms of EQ, my ability to lead a team. So recognizing and leading the mental and emotional state for a team versus an individual. These are two different skills. And so a lot of coaches just think, right, it's the lightning in a bottle. It's the rah-rah. It's the stuff that they see highlighted on ESPN for whenever strength gets one 30-second clip in ESPN of, Notre Dame football or whatever. So they think they got to be this rock star lightning in a bottle. Sure, maybe when you're leading a team, but then at an individual, you can't. I'm saying you can't. It's probably wise to meet the athlete wherever they're at and be that person that they need at that moment in time. So in terms of EQ, we're stepping through notes here. Relate, first and foremost. Relationship becomes first before rules. Then we step into my ability to lead individuals. This is why it's very valuable to be an assistant before you're head of a team, so you can have these one-on-one relationships and work on that as a skill to recognize and lead the mental and emotional state of an individual. Then we level up into feeling the energy of the team, recognizing that and leading the mental and emotional state of a team. So these are all different skills that I got the opportunity to make plenty of mistakes with scholarship athletes with their lives on the line, and make connections with them, which then leads to the next phase of motivation psychology. So there's so much fun research on this, and this is where I failed as a D3 All-Star, jumping up to this level where I thought that just being on the team would be motivation to them. But there's so many layers to this, and it's all individual based. So that ability to have that relationship and relate to them, now once it's set, now I can start to get into the motivation. So my master's degree that I got was in behavior change, which was super fun. So while the education was framed as like getting people to quit smoking cigarettes and picking up trash, now I could use those tools and behavior models with performance and athletics and connection. So that was awesome to now actually like apply my degree. Performance was just an interest. Now I'm using the health behavior change and connecting with these athletes on that level. And then the final phase of EQ as a coach. We can get into the athlete EQ next. The final phase of the the coach EQ is the psychology of discomfort. And this is something I spoke on with the presentation a lot, because as a beginning coach, when it comes to quote unquote conditioning, I'm talking about VO2 max. I'm talking about, how many miles or meters they ran, etc. All of that. And I'm presenting it to a coach, the head sport coach. None of it matters. Like, I'll die on that hill. It doesn't matter. Like, the best dudes are going to play, period. End of story. And then the best dudes are going to get in shape because they're practicing hard. They're working hard because they got more opportunities in practice. They got more opportunities in games. So the type of the high level conditioning and capacity work that they gain throughout their fall and their spring season, just speaking to lacrosse. For football, it could be throughout the 10 to 17 game season. That kind of intensity in 10 cities, quoting Wayne's World here, Canadian Mike Myers, that it's not matched. That game level. And so it's a gut check, and you're getting in shape in all that. So I can't match that in training. One, I don't have the time. Two, I don't have the buy-in from the players. I can be the greatest motivator of all time, but it's training. I'm with my teammates versus I'm with an opponent. I'm Georgetown playing Notre Dame. I'm freaking Alabama playing Auburn. All of these levels are unmatched. Texas playing Texas A&M. It just goes to a different level of intensity that I can't match in training. So it doesn't matter what my metrics say. So now we start to, okay, I will track and I'm not saying don't track distances. I'm not saying don't track this stuff. I don't think it's the end all be all. I'll still measure all that, but how I coach it is going to be focused on the psychology of discomfort. And again, now I'll frame what I don't apply within science. If science says resting on your knees, like bent over as a team, resting on your knees gets you more oxygen. No, I'm not going to listen to that.
No chance.
So this is now what I frame as the psychology of the sideline. I am focusing on posture. If I see in practice, my dudes are bent over or their hands are on their head, they're showing me that they need more conditioning, and we're going to do more conditioning. So it's how our posture, how our body language is saying that gets into that. So I'm using conditioning as number one. I'm just writing these down so I take notes. Number one is going to be the mental toughness aspect. And how I'm framing mental toughness is going to be body language and then how they're reacting emotionally. So again, I've been coaching for 15 years. I've seen it all. I've had dudes bark. They're in conditioning. They bark back at me if I try to correct them as an amphi-turner. So what an amphi-turner is, this is a line from Zoolander. So if I'm changing directions in a 5-10-5 and I only change directions with my right foot. So if I go to the right to start a 5-10-5 and I plant with my right foot, then I run across that line 10 yards and I turn and I plant with my right foot and I finish. That's an amphi-turner. While that may get you the best combine time, if we're conditioning, I want to change directions both right and left foot.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not worried about the time. I'm worried about how you do something under stress. So now, if I'm correcting that and telling a dude, hey, you only turn on your right leg, I'm not yelling at him. I'm just, hey, face me this next rep. And the dude talks back to me. Okay, we're 8 reps in and you're talking back to me because you're tired. If I was a referee, flag is down. Your team is punished. You show me we need more conditioning. Okay, I had 8 reps programmed. We're going to do 10. So now small adjustments like that, focusing on mental toughness and making sure it's a clear why. Hey, you've shown me that that you're reacting this way. Okay, you show me that we need more reps. So mental toughness. Now the next phase is going to be camaraderie. So now I'm speaking to the team. Hey, Ryan said this. We're going to do this. All right, everybody owes us 10 reps. So now in terms of boys and girls, this is a little bit different, but I'm coaching boys right now, so I'll speak to that. So now I'm calling them out. There is no shame here. I'm just putting responsibility on the individual, and I don't hold them out of the conditioning. They participate, they partake. And then another great example of camaraderie is going to be Indian runs, and the Chicago Bulls did this. Oh, I'll come back to the Bulls with mental toughness. I'll take one step back because there's a great story there. But with the Indian runs, this was spoken about in The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, where Dennis Rodman, right, camaraderie, he would go like bulls out on the sprint. So if Dennis Rodman was in the front and an Indian runs, the whole team follows. And so the leader sets the pace. They're going around the court. And then the last guy takes over for the leader. They got to sprint extra hard to get in front and then establish the pace. Some dudes choose to take it easy. Some dudes like Rodman with a few screws loose, they go all out and they sprint. So Indian runs are awesome, and it teaches guys a level of interpersonal responsibility, meaning that I can choose to dog it. You are not going to get better, but we'll survive this conditioning session. Or a dude like Rodman, who knows other guys are not going to work as hard as him, to test and show everybody that they got more in the tank. So that's an awesome thing. For camaraderie, I also like simple pillar work. So elbows and toes, side pillars. This is a test for me as a coach. If I'm stepping into, again, I've taught seminars all over the world. If I don't know anybody, I'm not going to start with sprints. I'm not going to start with dynamic anything. Let's start with pillars. So now I can learn and assess without any stressful impact or explosive risk who my people are, both physically and mentally. So when they're in a pillar, how soon do they go down? How soon do they stop? Do they raise their butt up in the air? And I'm saying, all right, hips down. Are they coachable? Are they listening in that moment? Or do they just disappear up their own ass if it just becomes about them and they're holding and they've shut off? And then also what I'm looking for is team leaders. Guys, come on, let's go. We got this. Stay up, hips up. So who's yelling out and motivating the team? So all different ways of seeing who my team is and building camaraderie, because I'm going to shape the behavior. I'm going to start to motivate them. I'm going to say, hey, Timmy, get Sammy up. So now I institute leadership. Instead of me just yelling at Sammy, Timmy gets an opportunity to lead. So all different ways that we can mix with pillar work that's minimal risk for injury. So before I get to the final purpose of conditioning and psychology of discomfort, I'll take a step back to mental toughness, and I'll highlight the Bulls again. So the Bulls strength coach, I don't know if a lot of people know this, he was a man named Al Vermeil. So Dick Vermeil's little brother. Al Vermeil was a strength coach. He was a high school football coach, and then the strength coach for the San Francisco 49ers, Bill Walsh. So he went from Bill Walsh's 3 championships to the Chicago Bulls to become their head strength coach. And he's got 9 rings. He's got rings on both hands. So not a lot of people can talk him down. So whether you like his techniques or not, dude's worked with the best and effectively willed them to win. One of Al Vermeil's conditioning tests for the Chicago Bulls was a simple box jump over. So I can't remember the height of the box. It's either 20 or 24 inches. Not a lot for a professional basketball player. So a jump on and jump over. So imagine just facing the clock on the wall, and you jump lateral left and right. So you're just going for 90 seconds. So Al's test, it didn't matter how many jumps you got. It's how you treated that 90 seconds. Did you go through the motions? Did you go balls to the wall? Were you, as a professional athlete, too cool for school? Did you say this is stupid? And so Al didn't mark the reps. I'm sure he counted the reps, but in the sense of the purpose of this story anyways, he just communicated the attitude that the player displayed, and that's what he relayed to the coaches. So now we have this jump over conditioning test that's communicating the mental toughness aspect, the individual, for them and how they approach the test. So if somebody is too cool for school, or somebody is just going through the motions, all of those are behaviors that are going to show up when the going gets tough, or we're going through a very long season and things are not going our way. At any moment, for any team, at any time, the season can turn around. Or you can play a spoiler. If the won-loss record is not going your way and you're at a bowl competition, there's still a chance for you to play a spoiler, especially during your rivalry week, right? If Auburn is playing Alabama and they're not in the SEC championship race, they still get an opportunity to knock Alabama out. And you better believe they're going to get up for it, despite of how the season's going, as an example. So now that's a great mental toughness tool. And then going back, so we had mental toughness, camaraderie, and then we're going to the final reason for conditioning. Now we're getting into more science based, essentially, but it's to decrease the rest time between maximal velocity efforts. So now I can step in and use boxing as an example. So now in let's see, within a round, who wins the round is not how many punches thrown, it's how many punches landed. So in order for me to get the most points, I need to throw more punches to provide more opportunities. But accuracy is very vital for this. So it's not us just going through the motions and throwing punches for reps. Now it's the accuracy. So maximal velocity, my maximal intentional movements here. So the better shape I am, the more opportunities I provide myself. So I'm decreasing the rest time between those accurate and maximal velocity moments. So now if I always set 30 seconds of rest time, I want to gradually decrease that rest time before my maximal velocity efforts. A great tool for this is going to be the Echo Bike. And this is something that Wellborn and I did a lot with the jiu-jitsu players that he's working with now. So now decreasing that rest time between their maximal velocity efforts, we can measure that on the Echo Bike. So now if I'm out of shape, then I may be the most amazing, accurate athlete, perfect of all time, but then I'm only good for 1 rep, 2 reps a quarter, 2 shots a quarter. We're switching sports here. Now I just want to decrease the rest time I need to perform my sport. So that's a major purpose, and that will take some measurement, but it's also a lot of attitude and effort and mental toughness within there. Again, going back to where starters get in shape, they're going to they believe that they can will this to a win, and despite of how many miles they ran in that game, when it's the fourth quarter and it's their shot to get the ball in their stick or take the shot, they're going to. So now it's providing that purpose and direction. So all different things here, but you can start to see how the emotional quotient, the emotional intelligence of a coach is built into this, right? It's not the perfect program. Yes, the program matters. However, if you're an assistant and you're running somebody else's program, how you make your impact is all EQ. And there are so many opportunities, especially as you're making your way up until you earn your right to build and write the program, that you can make a connection and have an impact. And turn the attitude around for the athlete, especially if they're start to have their personal opinions and their comments on the sport coach. Turn that around. He's saying that because he loves you. He cares about you. If he didn't care, he wouldn't say anything. So like reframing how they're acting. Again, they're, at least in college, they're 18 to 24 years old, maybe 28 with the new freaking COVID rules. But yeah. So there's so much impact at that assistant level, and I'm grateful for the opportunity at Georgetown to learn all these lessons. It took a lot of reflection on mistakes that I made as a coach, but then anchoring them in emotional quotient, just education, understanding, and self reflection. And not everybody's going to be able to or want to go 100 miles every single play. If you get that person, that they're going to do amazing things, but that's not going to be the majority of your athletes. That's going to be the diamond in the rough. And you got to learn that the people at the bottom of the bell curve, they may be just as gifted athletically, if not more, So you're going to have to work harder to bring them in the middle of the bell curve. Can't just treat
There,
everybody like the top.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said. And there's a few things I really want to tease out. The first one being, I think your choice of words in using privilege and responsibility in coaching was very, very important to note. You have the opportunity as a coach to make an impact on that person through the rest of their lives. The majority of the people that we work with as coaches, whether we're talking as online coaches, whether we're talking as, collegiate strength and conditioning coaches, 99.9% of the people that we work with are not going to play their sport beyond their 4 or 5 years in college. So, how can we impress upon them the life lessons that will bring them success in other areas? And I think the privilege and responsibility there is something we need to take very seriously. The other thing that I wanted to point out is within developing that coach athlete relationship, the best analogy that I've ever heard is as a coach, you can either be a thermometer or a thermostat. And so a thermometer tells you what temperature it is. So if you're a thermometer, the room has high energy, you have high energy. Room has low energy, you have low energy. But as a strength coach, you need to be a thermostat. The thermostat sets the temperature of the room. And you want to have that temperature set at that optimal level of arousal, that optimal level where those athletes are bought in, they're ready to go, they're primed for their best performance within whatever your program calls for that day. You also have to be able to adjust that temperature based on if you're talking to a person or if you're talking to the team as a whole, which you really hit home. And I love that because honestly, when you're dealing with a person, you got to dial it down. You got to dial it down and you have to relate to that person. You have to meet them where they are, as you said. Whereas as a team, you need to bring the team up to where you want them to be. Very rarely will the team be at that level right from the get-go. And there are incredible teams, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of them. And it's usually because the sport coach has instilled that sort of culture. But if you're stepping in and being the thermostat, you need to take that privilege and responsibility very seriously. The next point that you brought forward was at every level of, okay, do I need to raise the temperature or drop the temperature? You need to know how to measure and diagnose whether the temperature is too high or too low.
Mm-hmm.
And so building in, as you mentioned, the pillar work or the plank work, all you're doing there is diagnosing the temperature. You're saying, okay, where are we at? Whether it's on a team level, whether it's on an individual level, you build in these sorts of things within your program where you can assess the situation. And the more experience you get better at identifying the little intangible things. The body language, the breathing pattern was really big for me. If I was watching somebody's breathing, are they yawning? Are they hyperventilating? All of these things matter and they're indicative of that status in the room. And the last piece I want to highlight in what you said was at every step, as you raise the temperature, the goal is I'm going to bring the temperature up, then I'm going to hand off the reins to the team. So you're providing that autonomy within whatever sort of intervention you're working with. It's I'm going to bring you guys up, and then it's your responsibility to keep it there. And I'm only going to chime in and I'm only going to intervene when that level changes away from where I want it. And we see it all the time. I've had weight room fights. I've had fist fights in the weight room where athletes will fight each other because the temperature was too high. I've also had you mentioned I was laughing when you were saying it, but you know, Timmy's bullshitting at rep 8. I had only programmed 8 reps. Guess we're going to do 10. There was a conditioning session. One of my first conditioning sessions I did when I was the head strength coach at Queen's University up here in Canada. They had never had a strength coach before. So I came in, and at the time I was a much different person. Probably temperature I wanted was a lot higher than they were willing to give. Queen's is like a Yale or a Harvard in terms of like the intellect of the athlete. So they operate a little bit lower. Kids were bullshitting. Body language was bad. At the time, it was, all right, guys, we're not getting what we want. 10 burpees. Okay, we're not getting what we want. 10 burpees. We ended up getting like 2 movements through the warm up and then did the rest of the session as burpees because they were all bullshitting. And the coaches came up to me, they're like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing what's necessary to get the buy-in that you want. These guys cannot be allowed to walk all over me, and we have to set the standard for what we expect. From that moment, they were like, cool, man, do your thing. And guess what? We never had that issue again.
Yeah, that's what I like to call calculated coaching. So you were 2 reps into your warm up in a program that you invested time in writing, and then the dudes were not respecting you. So why it's called calculated coaching, I'm going to throw my program out. I understand the long-term development that I want, but dudes aren't listening. So now we're going to do burpees. We're going to run sprints until I get tired, right? To throw a coach trope out there. So now I'm risking hamstrings, I'm risking wrists, I'm risking certain things because the behaviors that I want are not there. So what is going to be more detrimental? My perfect long-term development program or the behaviors that I'm reinforcing by not stepping in right now at this moment and reminding dudes who's boss and establishing the physical culture that you want with your team. So there is risk there, but at the same time, like, what's the risk long term in respect to the behavior where they I mean, the kids will test. They'll see what boundaries are, and they're just testing your boundaries, and you just reinforced where the boundaries lie, and that's why they weren't challenging you ever again. So if coaches are, and this is a challenge for the young coaches, I know this from experience, they're going to give you the warm up because they hate the warm up. They don't value it. Value it and coach that warm up like it's the freaking max out weight room session that you're going to see on Instagram from the head coach and really set the tone. One thing I like to say with the warm up is I want to see reps, not steps, right? If we're lunging and it's forward lunge, step, step, forward lunge, left foot, step, step. So I want to see just lunges with a big pull through. So coach the hell out of it. And then if they're not meeting you at that level, okay, calculated coaching time. We're gonna run some sprints right away.
Mm-hmm.
I will say they most likely will not run the sprints with the intensity that will cost you a hamstring. You never know. I've even seen dudes just step forward into a lunge, just body weight lunge during a warm up, and then injure their knee. So there's always something that is at risk of happening that you will have to take responsibility for as a strength coach. So just be ready to defend your case with behavior if an injury happens when you did go off script, and present the long-term consequences of kids not establishing a boundary or respect for authority. Right? As a strength coach, I would argue, hey, they're aiming to push me around. I'm not going to put up with that because I know if they were to speak this way to you, head sport coach, you would lose a whole practice. Practice is a hell of a lot more valuable time with the team than my strength session. That's me just saying that to the sport coach. Me
Mm-hmm.
personally, I value the strength and conditioning because I know the coordination that creates tough, coachable athletes. So I'm just conceding to a sport coach. You better get used to that as a strength coach. So just saying that for argument.
So I have one more question about this before we move on to the next part of the conversation, which I think is really important as well within your journey. What if we're in a private sector now? So you've had the opportunity to move from that collegiate strength and conditioning weight room where, yeah, the kids don't quote unquote have to be there, but they kind of have to be there if they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you're moved into an opportunity where that person is paying you or that person's parents are paying you to provide a service? Is that conversation or that relationship building different?
In respect to that, both are aligned with do your actions meet your goals.
Mm.
So now if we're speaking to, and just for the conversation's sake, I'm calling Gen Pop. Nothing against people with fitness goals or competition sites. So do your actions meet your goals? You are showing up 5 days a week at 6 a.m. and you're sweating and working hard, but then on the weekends you're freaking drinking high noons all day and having too good of a time.
Right.
And then you're asking me why the certain body parts don't look the way they do. Okay, well, yeah, do you want to work hard to work off the weekends, or do you want to work hard to then look a certain way? So, do your actions meet your goals? I could say the same high noon story for the collegiate athlete.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So I would put this just on behaviors for both sides of it, and then
Mm,
help them understand. So, in respect to, I mean, we can get into the emotional, social emotional game for the athlete and the individual. So, both of those would conclude with responsible decision making. So, now it's just with certain long term health benefits that are connected to my goal or my performance. So,
mm.
whether it's, yeah, fitness goal or performance, do your actions meet your goals?
I like that. So I want to pivot the conversation towards a bit kind of backpedaling to your personal journey, because one thing that I like to highlight, and I'm very, very adamant about it, is within all of our careers, we have chapters. And each chapter brings with it different opportunities and challenges. So you're working for Kids Strong HQ right now, very stable career, you're stable income, salary, I would assume, and you're moving into a new chapter of your career where you're going to have that basement level of income pulled out of you, out from under you. But you're also going to have that ceiling completely removed. How does that conversation go in your head when you're preparing to make that step? And maybe what are the things that you considered during that process?
The This is connected to the previous opportunity with Power Athlete. So I was with John for 11 years, and we were, yeah, lock step and key with all coaching points, talking points, and I could raise him up, he could raise me up, and we could bounce great off each other. So then you present the question of like, okay, how long can I do this? And I was reinforcing and helping build John's brand. So I love the mentality, love the brand, everything about it. And John's a great man and father, and a lot of respect for him. But again, I'm building John's brand. So then I had an opportunity to step over to Kid Strong, and I took it. So now I'm stepping into this role as manager of learning and development, and then the big aim is syncing everyone with the same communication and language. So Kid Strong is franchised. They're all over the United States and Canada. And it's the goal, and the simple goal was, say you go to Chick-fil-A in Canada, you go to Chick-fil-A in Dallas, you get the same experience and service in language. So now the objective with Kid Strong was to unify the communication system and tools and coaching across the board. These coaches were entry level, so 18 to 24, 16 to 24 high school. Great job for a high schooler and entry level coach. So now it's training and developing them. So within a year, aim to reshape and frame the certification. So we establish a baseline of communication, and then over the year built 1, 2, 3 levels of development that unlock of just experience. So after a year, I accomplished the goal I set it out to. And so now the next phases of education for the company were not what I was interested in. It's not connected to coaching. And so you got to think like, okay, can I show up and do a job that I don't like? I'm coaching sixth grade lacrosse for fun. Okay, I want competition. I want performance. I volunteered every once in a while to run the warm ups for the high school program here that I was associated with, and you get that charge, you get that itch, you get those hyped up moments where I'm just leading these dudes for 10 minutes, and I want to see them freaking unleash the performance during practice. I want to unlock something in them because they were doing static stretching before, and it pains me. It hurts me to watch prepare for practice.
Yeah.
So now let's just see what we can unlock. So it was an amazing experience with Kid Strong in terms of mastering communication and coaching, whether I'm working with a parent or a kid walking to a kid 11 years old, do the same communication and coaching principles apply? Absolutely. But now I'm learning more about the social emotional development and it's not forcing me. It provided me the opportunity to reflect on all the coaching mistakes that I ever had, where a kid would fight back, would bark back, would step in and fight teammates. Like what happened? Or a kid showing up drunk to college practice. Like
Oh
what's
my
going
God.
on?
Yeah.
Me blaming the kid versus anything that I could have stepped in and just like there's stuff going on outside of this. And I believe that the coach is the last line of defense to now step in before this dude's got to go off into the real world, whether that is college, the next level, or the a career. And bosses aren't going to give two shits. So now, okay, last line of defense. I started reflecting on all of the mistakes and just where I would label dudes problem childs, like problem
Hmm.
kids. But no, they had shit going on where they needed me, and I wasn't there. I would turn my back on them or like, whoa, I'm not going to talk to you today. Something's going on. Versus, okay, this they need me right now at this moment. So learning the development through Kid Strong and social emotional learning, it's called, and a lot of the mindset, the tools, neuro linguistic programming is a great term to write down and learn. That's affirmations and how people think about themselves. So that's the beauty of Kid Strong. They're instilling how to think about themselves early on at age. So now it's taking all those tools but reframing it to the population that I love to work with the most, which is that high school and collegiate athlete connected to performance, no matter the sport. And so it is connected to my journey because I believe the best brands tell a story. Like what I learned with Power Athlete and their brand director, his name's Harry Heptonstall. His journey's cool because he went from Haagen Dazs and Jim Beam, right, two things that are killing people, to Power Athlete, which is empowering people. So brands have a story. And so then the brand I'm stepping into is captains and coaches, right? What was my first leadership opportunity? My first opportunity to speak and find a voice. I'm an introvert. I'm a quiet observer. And so where I was forced into and I jokingly say forced, I was um, thrown into an opportunity to lead where I didn't have in high school because my coaches labeled my performance. Now I'm expected to get everybody to work as hard as I am, which plenty of lessons learned just trying to lead and get frustrated because I was not the best communicator. And so captain, where I first stepped into a leadership and communication role, and then coach, where I now stepped into a position to lead leaders physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so it's captains and coaches, and that's the aim, is to help leaders, whether they're team leaders, captains, or they're team leaders, coaches, in how they can maximize the opportunity that they have to build communication through movement, through practice, through training, through competition, and empower the individuals that they lead. So no labeling of kids. If they're acting this way, okay, well, here's potential conditioning tools. Here's potential team building exercises to then take that on. So it's it's an opportunity I'm excited about because I'm living it every day as a sport coach now, and then just trying different things, discovering different things, connecting with coaches like you all over the world through podcast, and then putting a people in a position to change the trajectory of either their own life or the lives that they're impacting. And dude, you know this better than anybody. Why do good coaches quit? Because freaking asshole parents or asshole athletes. So we can give coaches social emotional skills to then communicate with them, because then all those kids' problems, all those parents' problems are going to follow them into college. They're going to follow them into their job interview. I heard some ridiculous stat where COVID parents are now sitting in on job interviews, even if it's Zoom. They're just sitting in the room and like trying to help guide the kid through the
Oh
interview.
my God.
Yeah, nuts. So now it's yeah, with COVID kids stepping into high school now, there's a lot of social emotional challenges that coaches are not prepared for, and yeah, going to have some fun educating those coaches and team leaders.
When is the company launching? I know this podcast is going to come out in a few weeks, so it'll probably be already out. Like, what's the timeline for what are you offering? When is it coming out?
The so building in this phase, and we're in mid June here. In this phase, building out the brand. So what I learned through Power Athlete and Harry Heptonstall there was story brand. So now I've connected with awesome brand builders that are setting me up for success. So I've done market research. I've connected with coaches and asked them certain questions. I've connected with collegiate athletes, asked them certain questions, and then I connected with parents and then found all these different pain points and challenges and fears for these different populations. And so we're in that brand building phase, and I'm doing it right. I'm going all in. This is
I love
this is
it.
the big swing. So the timing, it's going to be when it's right, and then it's going to lead off with podcasts. And how I'm positioning that is I want application as the name of the game, right? A lot of tools that I presented here, like it was directed at, okay, this is relate, this is lead individuals. Here's how I did it. Here's how you can do it with your team.
Absolutely.
That's the name of the game. So then I'll have the forward facing podcast, and then just in starting out free, just be an online lesson where here's the top 3 things or the top 5 that I will apply and practice on Monday. So now just put that into an education online course, starting out completely free, and then we'll start to build out that brand and connect with it. Eventually, like I'll have my practice plans. I will have how I'm leading this session in terms of social emotional leadership. Here's the message and theme for the week. I got 4 practices a week. Here's my leadership script. Here's my athletic development warm up, 10 minutes of practice, and here's my 4 minutes of either speed or conditioning. So if you're a sport coach out there and you're just throwing paint against the wall and calling it conditioning, well, here's actually long-term development approaches that they'll be at your fingertips, and then how to develop leaders. So
Love it.
all of these components, put it out there. I am applying it on the field, which is fun. None of it's theory. And the aim, whether I'm talking with you, whether I'm talking with Lauren Landau, head strength coach in Notre Dame football, that it's all, hey, what can I apply to my team on Monday?
I love that. I love that. Um, all right. So I like to finish off the podcast with a few silly questions because I think it's a great way to get to know a little bit more about a person by asking them some quick hitters. And I saved this one because I think it's hilarious. How did you get kicked out of the Vatican?
Okay, so this is a story. So the beauty of Power Athlete, we got to travel the world. We had a contract with CrossFit to teach a CrossFit sports specific application seminar. That is a mouthful, but that's what they called it. So SSA, we like to call it, but then nicknamed it internally Ass Backwards, right? So, yeah, the sports specific application of CrossFit. No, we just took John's sports specific training for football and then said AMRAP and some fun stuff. No, it was a great time. We enjoyed it. So then we booked one in Rome, Italy, and then the following weekend we booked in Germany, Nuremberg. So I had 2 weeks in Europe. The first week I flew in, taught my seminar in Rome. I was going to kick it in Rome for a week and then fly to Germany to meet Luke for a seminar, and then Oktoberfest. I've done Oktoberfest 4 times. I got Survival Guide. We'll talk about that on podcast number 2. So the Vatican. So one of the days I went, and this is 2016. I dedicated to like fancy tours and Vaticans. This is the first time I've seen the world. I've traveled, but this is the first time that I paid for a tour guide. Before it was Luke Summers and I like looking at Stonehenge like a couple of idiots and be like, oh, that's cool. I should have paid somebody to tell me about this stuff and really learned. So I went all in for the Vatican I like to joke I'm a recovering Irish Catholic, but uh, I I understand the history and everything with Catholicism, so the Vatican was something of interest. So I paid for the tour. I show up and you get a PhD like level tour guide, somebody that just lives and breathes everything within that. And then there's so much history and art and everything. You need somebody smart. So we're going through and like I'm having a great time. I'm taking pictures and they're pointing out stuff. They're talking about it. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. And you go through it all, and finally you get to the Sistine Chapel, so the beautiful Michelangelo painted ceiling. And before you go in, they tell you everything. Like the myths, he didn't lay down and paint it. He was actually standing and craning his neck, and then he would use lye to clean the paint, and the lye would drip down on his face, and that's why he was going blind. Blah blah blah. So they like taught you everything about it before you went in there. And then the tour, you step in and they're like, all right, we're going to give you 30 minutes just to take it in with one caveat: no pictures. So I'm like, okay, cool. I adhere to rules. I will abide. I'm in the Catholic freaking fortress of solitude. I'm going to listen. My Nana, she would want me to. Okay. So step in and it's taking it all in and you walk around and it's beautiful, it's awesome, it's silent, and it just smells different. If you've seen Good Will Hunting, he's got this quote where he's like, you've never smelt the Sistine Chapel. So I'm thinking about Robin Williams while I'm looking at these paintings and just taking it in. It's amazing. And then next to me, it's dead silent, and I hear like like somebody's taking photos, and I look and I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to do that. And it's this gentleman he's grotesquely overweight. Like he's got like
What I would expect.
I know. Yeah, I just can't. I can't think of how to describe him. And this is, nearly 10 years ago, and my attitude on fitness was very intense at the time. So I was not looking at this guy very nice. And he just did this move where he like flipped his super nice camera underhand and was blindly like just taking 1,000 shots of the ceiling. And I'm like, dude, this guy is going to get this memory and I'm not. I'm not going to have that. Like now my pride is stepping in, the Irish Catholic in me. So I had a GoPro. We always traveled with GoPros for awesome adventures, great white shark diving in Cape Town, everything.
Okay.
Oktoberfest. Dude, I got so many stories, it's ridiculous. So I take my GoPro and just down at my belt buckle, I try to pull his move. And a GoPro is so small, his camera was so big, and I just pressed the button once. And then this Italian guard, he just looks at me, he points, and just starts talking Italian to me, and puts his hand on my shoulder and starts moving me. And my tour guide stepped up, and she was willing to protect me. Like, no, he's with me. And she steps up and speaking Italian, and then he speaks Italian back to her, and she's like, "Oh no, no, yeah, get him out of here." So it's like, thanks, lady. So then I'm walking with this man through these like beautiful historical hallways. I don't know where we're going. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak Italian. And in Europe, there's exit signs that are green that look like a man like who's running. And so I'm worried I'm going to get taken to like
Vatican jail.
They're going to take my GoPro away, which isn't mine. It's John's technically. So now I see the exit, and then I just do my lacrosse move. I lean into him. I create space. I basically hip check him, stiff arm Heisman, crossover step into a sprint through the door. And then as soon as I break through the door, I'm in the streets of freaking Rome. And now it's just like walk at a faster pace, right? If you've seen movies where they escape and they're just trying to like
Like
act
blend in,
cool, blend in. Yes,
act normal.
act normal. So I'm like speed walking through the streets, and the tour concludes in St. Peter's. If you've seen the Da Vinci Code,
Mm-hmm.
right? St. Peter's is this beautiful cathedral. So then I'm like, crap, I missed the conclusion. So then I circle back into St. Peter's and just like run around the Vatican walls, or speed power walk around the Vatican walls to like finish in the St. Peter's Cathedral. But now, just like my old ways, I'm just looking at this old cool stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome. I wish I had a tour guide. So like a great time. I don't know where I was going, but I avoided Vatican jail, and the beauty is I got the picture, which I'll share it with you after. But I just, this stoic chin is blocking a part of it. So the real piece of work, the real art within that is captured. So yeah, it's a great story. It's a great time. If anyone gets a chance to go to Rome, go see the Vatican for sure, but aim to be more sneaky than I.
Dude, I really appreciated this. The last question I have for you, if there's one person that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, who would it be? The caveat is you have to help me get them on the podcast.
Oh man, easy day. You already had Mike Hill, which I appreciated that interview. I I would recommend his name is Jim Davis of Good Athlete Project. Uh, yeah, college football player, but he Nutrient high school strength coach, and the nonprofit is Good Athlete Project. So he goes within the high school strength and conditioning program, maybe 2,000 plus kids a day. So
Oh,
the
wow.
busiest strength and conditioning program in the country,
Holy
in that
shit.
high school, Nutrient High School in Chicago suburbia. So yeah, he's the man. He's intelligent. He's got a master's degree from Harvard, and yeah, Good Athlete Project, worth a Google. He's a great writer and puts a lot of awesome work out. He's the man. So I can easily make that happen.
I'd love that. Last thing, if there's one thing that you'd like to leave the audience with, what would it be?
Great question. Well, the plug, I guess, head to captainsandcoaches.com, like written out, and then my socials, just my last name at McQuilkin, McQuilkin. And yeah, anticipate just to see and view my best put out there. I'm not going to hold anything back. Like this is the shot. So all the stuff I am excited about and sharing, I will put it out, and that authentic content is the way to go. So with that, aim to have a lot more takeaways than what I'm just giving here right now.
I love it.
Got to leave them wanting more. So I'll play some showbiz right there.
There you go. So I will have all those links in the show notes to where everyone can find Tex. Everyone, thank you so much. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.